I live in Portland, Oregon, and I've been delivering for Uber Eats for a long time. Thousands of orders by now. Most of them blur together in my memory, just the usual mix of restaurants, addresses, and leave it at the door instructions. But one night, one delivery stands out, and I can't stop thinking about it. It started like any other. I got an order from Baskin-Robbins, a few pints and some toppings. The customer was only a couple miles away in one of those upscale apartment buildings downtown. Nothing unusual. I picked up the order, thanked the cashier, and walked to my car with the cold plastic bag sweating in my hand. As I was buckling in, I got a message through the app. "Hey, thanks for getting my order. Could you just come inside and leave it on my table? I recently got home from the hospital and can't bend down at the door." It struck me as odd. No one's ever asked me to enter their apartment before. Normally, even if they're home, they just want it left outside. But I didn't think too much of it. People get injured all the time, and maybe this guy really couldn't bend. I replied, "Sure thing, I'll be there soon." A minute later, another message popped up. "My apartment is unlocked. I'll be 10 feet inside waiting." That wording, it stopped me cold. Not, "I'll be just inside." Not, "The door's open, come in." He said 10 feet inside. Who the hell describes their position inside their apartment like that? It sounded calculated, like he had measured the distance. I brushed it off, trying to rationalize it. Maybe he just meant he'd be close to the door and didn't think twice about his wording. But even then, a little chill ran down my spine. I arrived at the building, one of those tall luxury towers with glass doors, floral arrangements, and a keypad entry. The kind of place where the air even smells expensive. The app listed the customer as Zachary Winstrom, but when I scrolled through the directory on the keypad, there was no Winstrom, only Zachary Warner. Same first name, same apartment number, 220. The discrepancy set off another red flag. Who puts a different last name on their delivery order when they know the driver needs to find them on a directory? It didn't feel like a typo. It felt intentional. I called the number listed in the app. It rang and someone answered, but didn't say a word. Just silence, then a soft click. No buzz, no "come on up," nothing. I tried again. No answer this time. Most people are eager to get their food. They'll buzz you in before you even press the call button properly. But not this guy. I stood outside for 5 minutes, debating whether to cancel the order. I texted again. Still nothing. Just as I was about to give up, someone else, an actual tenant I guess, opened the door on their way out. I slipped inside and made my way to the elevator. The lobby was just as fancy as I expected. Dim, warm lights, soft jazz playing, polished marble floors, wood paneling, a complimentary tea station off to the side. Normally it'd be comforting. Tonight it felt like a haunted hotel. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the second floor. The moment the doors slid shut, my phone rang. An unknown number. Not the number from the Uber app, a completely different one. I let it ring for a couple seconds, staring at the screen, before answering. The voice on the other end was male, but it was wrong. Distorted, like it was run through a malfunctioning voice modulator. It was angry, frantic, garbled, like someone was trying to scream through a broken speaker. I couldn't make out the words, just the emotion. Rage, desperation, or maybe something worse. Then it stopped. Click. The elevator dinged, second floor. I stepped out slowly, suddenly hyper-aware of how quiet the hallway was. Too quiet for a building this big. The kind of silence that presses against your ears, makes your heartbeat feel intrusive. I found Unit 220 at the far end of the hall. The door was cracked open, exactly like the text said. I froze. Every instinct I had screamed, "Don't go in there." But I'd come this far, and part of me still wanted to believe this was all just a misunderstanding. Maybe he was old. Maybe he was injured. Maybe he had a speech issue or a bad connection. Maybe. I knocked on the open door. No response. I raised my voice. "Hey, I've got your Uber Eats order." Still nothing, not even movement. I pushed the door open a little more. The apartment was almost pitch black inside. No TV, no lights, just a faint sliver of moonlight leaking through partially drawn blinds. I could barely make out the outlines of a couch, a shelf, and some framed pictures on the wall. Something about the darkness felt unnatural, like the kind of black you only find in basements or nightmares. I switched on my phone flashlight. The beam caught the edge of the kitchen, and that's when I saw it. A figure motionless, just barely visible behind the wall that bordered the kitchen, exactly where someone would be standing if they were 10 feet inside. Tall, still, silent. I couldn't tell if it was a man, a mannequin, or something worse. The light didn't reach far enough to see a face, just the outline of a head, a shoulder, and the eerie stillness of someone who knew they were being watched. My stomach dropped. I stepped back, heart hammering. "F this shit!" I yelled and dropped the order right there at the doorway. Ice cream splattered across the entryway as the bag hit the floor. I turned and ran. No hesitation, no second thoughts. I didn't stop until I was back in the car, doors locked, engine running, tires screeching as I pulled away from that place like it was cursed. Even though I'm 6 feet tall, 185 pounds, and carry both a taser and a large knife on every delivery, none of it mattered. Something about that place, that presence, told me that if I stepped over the threshold, I wasn't walking back out. Later, I called Uber to report the incident, told them everything. They deactivated the account. Still, the questions haunt me. Who was the person on the phone? Why the distortion? Why the wrong name? Was it deliberate to throw someone off? Or had I interrupted something? Staged? Was someone waiting behind that wall for me? And if so, what the hell were they planning to do? Worst of all, what if this wasn't the first time they'd tried something like this? That night wasn't just my scariest delivery. It was the closest I've ever come to stepping into a horror movie, and maybe never stepping out again. The imperfect nature of Uber has made me feel like a watcher, an observer of humanity passing through in fragments. I am not a main character. I am a non-player presence in the chaotic narratives of thousands of strangers. I witness joy, sorrow, excess, and vulnerability, all from the front seat of a car they never look at twice after the ride ends. When they get in, I become what they need. If they're buzzing with laughter and tipsy adrenaline, I reflect that back, offering quips, playing party music, letting the energy soar. If they're quiet or upset, I respect that too. I become silent, invisible, reliable. Over the years, I've picked people up from all places. The airport with tears still fresh in their eyes, smoky bars with lipstick smudged and ties loosened, from the sterile silence of hospitals and the solemn echo of funeral homes. I've even picked people up directly from prison. I would wager that only priests see people at more turning points in life than I do. And yet I am not allowed to act. Not truly. I must agree, nod, or stay silent. I cannot argue, question, or reveal too much of myself. The whole system is built on approval, and one bad review can cost me income. I am neutral by design, a created presence, a people-pleasing ghost who merely chauffeurs others through their own stories. I've heard depraved confessions spill from the lips of businessmen who reeked of whiskey and self-importance. I've listened to zealous spiritual leaders speak in cruel, mocking tones about the very doctrines they claim to uphold. And always I remain polite, because that is the role. What I experienced tonight is why I'm writing this. Not to unburden myself, but because I need someone to know. Especially you, officer. You see, I need you to understand the context, the emotional fabric of what I felt, so that I can explain what happened without believing that I failed Abigail. Abigail Yukovic, my ex-wife. Our marriage collapsed 3 years ago, quietly and inevitably. Along with it, much of my life. She kept the house, the dog, and custody of the children. I was left with my car, my only real asset. The divorce was justified, at least from her point of view. She claimed she couldn't understand my needs. The court deemed those needs unnatural, disturbing. When I started expressing them outwardly, visibly, Abigail found me repulsive. I changed in ways she could not or would not accept. And yet I never resented her. She had always seemed to live by a strict moral code. Even when she began spending long nights at the gym with her predominantly male co-workers, men who looked like magazine covers come to life, I still believe she never cheated. I truly think she simply lost interest. I think my transformation disgusted her, and maybe it should have. Maybe even now you believe it was right to cast me aside. But please don't let your judgment of who I am affect how you consider what I'm about to tell you. It was 3:03 a.m. when the request appeared on my Uber driver app. A writer named Abigail had pinged me from Viceroy nightclub in Westport. As I drove to the location, a strange sensation crawled over me. The name alone stirred something, a tangle of memory and dread. I parked outside the club, a grotesque beacon of overstimulation. Lights blinked and flashed like warning signs. The bass from within rumbled through the pavement like distant thunder. The crowd outside was primal, barely dressed bodies glistening under neon, men posturing, women weaving through them like smoke with mischief in their eyes. It felt like a performance of something unholy. I couldn't imagine Abigail inside a place like that. Not the Abigail I knew. Not the woman who once lectured a waitress for wearing red lipstick around our children. No one approached the car after the first few minutes. I waited the required time, then did what any driver would. I attempted to call the rider. The phone rang once and then went silent. I tried again. The result was the same. Deciding to cancel, I made one final attempt. This time, the call connected. The voice on the other end was familiar, slurred and dazed from alcohol, but unmistakably Abigail's. She seemed confused, as if she didn't recognize my voice. She insisted she was already in her Uber. I tried to correct her, told her I was outside the club. What I heard next shifted everything. Another voice, male and unnervingly calm, asked her to show him the Uber app. There was a pause, followed by the sound of something falling, a thud like a body slumping or a phone hitting the floor. Then came her panic. She began to cry out for help. Her voice trembled, broken by gasps and pain. She begged someone to stop. She pleaded for an explanation. Then the words dissolved into sounds, screams, stifled agony, fear, and then nothing. No disconnection tone, just an absence. A deafening silence that pressed into my ears like static. I sat frozen in my seat, my mind refusing to process what I had just heard. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe properly for a long time. The club lights continued to pulse behind me. People kept laughing, stumbling, shouting. But in that moment, I was outside of it all, adrift. The next 24 hours passed in a haze. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just drove around the city, my mind spiraling with what-ifs and memories. I kept replaying that final moment on the call, over and over, as if I could change the outcome by thinking hard enough. Now I'm here, writing this, reporting it. I don't know what happened to her, officer. I don't know where she went or who she got into that car with. But I know what I heard. I know she needed help. And someone else, whoever he was, answered that need before I ever got the chance. I never stopped caring about her, not even after the divorce. And that's why this haunts me. Because no matter what she thought of me, no matter what judgments were passed on my identity, I would have kept her safe. And I couldn't. Now she's gone, and her Uber has departed. I hardly like to remember the first and last time I ever took an Uber, as it was a fairly traumatic experience. I had just finished an 11-hour shift, and I had hardly gotten much sleep the night before. Even if I had a vehicle at the time, I'm not sure I would have chosen to drive myself home because of my level of exhaustion. Usually I took a taxi home, but either the ones that drove past me that day didn't want to drive me, or they were all taken. So I chose to use Uber since my friends both raved so hard about it, practically preaching as if it were their personal religion. Well, in every few good experiences, there's a bad one, and this is where mine begins. Once my Uber arrived, I noticed it had no back license plate, but I didn't think much about it because, to be quite honest, I was a blink away from passing out onto the pavement. So of course, I didn't think anything of it. The moment I sat in the vehicle, I noticed how irrevocably clean it was, especially compared to most of the taxis I had taken in my life. Another thing I noticed was how the man in the front seat never so much as took a glance in my direction. He even just sat there for a minute in complete and utter silence, unmoving. After that minute, I began to think that I had somehow gotten into the wrong vehicle and apologized. But once I did, the car started moving, so I relaxed a bit, assuming he may have just been waiting for a moment to get back into traffic. The last thing I remembered was watching the bustling downtown area going about its business, until my eyes finally chose to flutter shut and send me into a blissful sleep. I woke up once the car hit a large pothole in the road, causing me to whack my head into the window fairly hard. The first thing that alerted me to something being wrong was the fact that it was super dark out. When I had entered the Uber, it was at least 3 at night. It doesn't get dark at that time of year till at least 4 or 5 at night. On top of that, the highway in which I didn't recognize was practically dead, which that in itself was a rarity, so I couldn't even begin to comprehend how long I had actually been out for. As I glanced out of the window, I felt my heart sink into the pit of my stomach slightly. We were no longer inside the city. Instead, we were on a pitch-black highway surrounded by dense forest, and I didn't live anywhere outside of the city. I quickly began to feel the tingling sensation of eyes on me, causing me to turn my head to the empty seat beside me, except it was no longer empty. It was nearly too dark to see, but I was able to make out the shape of a dark, lanky figure seated beside me. The only part of his face that was lit up by the dim dash lights were his insanely wide eyes staring at me intensely. The way he looked at me gave me a sense of complete and utter panic. I was in a situation that I never thought could happen to me. It was something that happened to other people, never me. "Do you happen to know if we're close to my destination?" I questioned, trying to sound as calm as possible. The man beside me continued to stare at me longer than any sane person would be comfortable with. "He has other plans for you, a new destination. We're almost there," the man beside me stated in an unsettling tone. At this point, I was sure the man hadn't blinked a single time since I had awoken. The man's words quickly sent my already present panic into overdrive. The car was going nearly 100 miles per hour on the highway, in the middle of the night. My mind began to race as fast as the vehicle, grasping at any faint idea I could use to get me out of the car or out of my situation. If I jumped out of the vehicle and somehow didn't break any bones or end up dead, they would easily find me on the road. Plus, I had no clue where I even was. "I have to go to the bathroom. Could we maybe make a quick stop?" I said. The two men simply stayed quiet, practically ignoring my question, although it hardly seemed as though they had even heard me at all. "The others will welcome you once he is done. He will welcome you." The man in front seat finally spoke deeply, the vibrato and intent in his voice shaking me to the core. The moment a single vehicle finally drove past us, the light that filled the car was enough to help me see my surroundings better, giving me a moment to get a more clear look at the second passenger. The man beside me had fresh stitches all over his face. His top eyelids were stuck open, making his constant wide eyes more understandable, but no less unsettling. His entire face was almost like some sick sewing project, almost reminiscent of Frankenstein, but confined to the head rather than the entire body. "You came to us for a reason. He will be pleased to make you like me, like us," the man beside me said, beginning to stroke my hair and touch the features of my face. I began to shake under the stranger's touch as well as his words. His fingers were rough and disconcertingly dry. The sound of sirens from behind us let an overbearing rush of relief wash over me. But there was also an almost uncomfortable tension that fell upon the air. It felt as if something within the air was taut and ready to snap at any moment, as if the slightest provocation or wrong movement could cause it to blow. "Do you folks know why I pulled you over?" the police officer questioned once he reached the car. "No, sir. I don't believe I do," the man in the driver's seat said in a flat manner. "Well, for starters, you were going nearly 50 over the speed limit. That, of course, isn't a huge deal, as it is the highway, and it's not very busy at this time. But both of your headlights are burnt out, and that's too dangerous to be on the road. I'm surprised I even caught you. It was so dark," the officer stated calmly, tapping his fingers against the car as he stared into the dark vehicle. The moment his eyes made contact with my own, I tried as hard as possible to convey my fear, to silently plead for help without aggravating the two men in some way. "I thought I recognized you. There's a warrant out for your arrest. I'm afraid I'll have to take you in," the cop says sternly, singling me out. The men around me didn't seem to clue into the fact that he was talking to me, as I saw them both tense up at his words. The moment the police officer opened the passenger door beside me, I nearly began crying out of relief, but I refrained. The men behind me stayed uncomfortably quiet as the cop locked the cuffs on me. The now overly acquainted sense of unease and panic continued to fill me as I felt the men's eyes bore into my back. It felt like at any moment my chance at freedom would be taken away, that they would be armed and shoot my savior, or even me. But they did neither. Instead, they sat within the car quietly, just staring at us in a horrific trance-like state. Even as the cop car began to drive away, I somehow still felt their cold and unnerving stares upon my skin. The air still thick with tension, and no matter how far away we got, their car never moved so much as an inch, which made me feeling even more so stressed than before if it was even possible. How'd you know I needed help? I'm a cop. I could recognize the look in your eyes from a mile away. I see it daily, he stated. Within seconds, I began breaking down in tears. Every emotion suddenly overwhelmed me. The man didn't say another word the entire ride. He simply let me cry it out. He even offered to watch my house for the night in case they came back, as I had given them my address. I of course said yes, even though I didn't sleep a wink that night. They never came back. They probably found another woman instead. The thought sickens and terrifies me. Maybe they never even left that spot on the highway. If that hellish car had never gotten pulled over, I don't even want to know what would have happened. I wouldn't have gotten my chance to escape the horrible situation I had found myself in. Be careful if you take an Uber or any other service like it. And no matter how tired you are, don't fall asleep in the vehicle. And that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you enjoyed these chilling stories. If you did, don't forget to drop a comment with your favorite one, hit that like button, and subscribe for more spine-tingling tales coming your way. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.